Welcome back to the MizzouToday Show, powered by On3 and Rivals. Your host, Kenny Van Doren, joined as always by Kyle McAreavy. Kyle, let's get right into it. Just a little bit of Alabama cleanup before we get into our full Auburn preview and what to expect, and the first real road contest, but actually not. So I guess that will probably be the start for that when we get into the Auburn stuff. But clear from the Alabama game, first loss of the season. It was in the hands of Missouri at that point. But I mean, what were some things that probably just went wrong for the Tigers that you want to see them improve on this week if they're looking to get their first road win of the season and reach that 6-win mark pretty early on?
Oh, the main one's got to be that offensive consistency that we saw for the most part through those first 5 games. There were a couple of down sequences in those games, but nothing like we'd seen or like what we saw against Alabama. That largely, in my mind, comes from better play from Beau Pribula. I mean, some of those passes were just kind of wildly off in a way we hadn't really seen. The one that really sticks out is the second drive of the game for Mizzou when he scrambled out to his right and had Marquise Johnson wide open down the sideline and just sailed it about 10 yards out of bounds. I mean, that's a throw that, there's a handful of moments in that game that kind of feel like if any one of them had gone a different way, maybe the game goes different. I think that's one of them where, the first drive for Mizzou looked so easy, so effortless. The second drive, you kind of, you run the ball a couple of times, it works out. And then that pass, if you hit that, you're into, deep into Alabama territory. You're moving the ball again. Maybe you go up 14-7 after that. Maybe it's only 10-7, whatever. But you're continuing to move. Instead, that throw sails out of bounds, and then it was a long sequence of offensive inefficiency after that. That's just kind of one of those moments where it's like, man, you really... that's the type of throw you need. When you've got a guy that open, you got to hit it. And I think that, that improved quarterback play going forward will lead to better offensive efficiency. Drinkwitz in his press conference kind of referenced it and said, you can't expect a guy who's still new to starting to come in and be perfect, which is very reasonable. I mean, Beau's made 6 career starts now. He's played the full game in 3 games. That's not that many snaps at quarterback comparatively to, when you're looking at Brady Cook last season. It's just not that much. The Drinkwitz made the comp to Brady Cook in 2022 about struggling to lead game-ending drives at that point, which I think also a fair enough comparison. But I made this point in Said and Unsaid after Drinkwitz's press conference. This team has much higher goals than the 2022 Tigers did. You don't have time to deal with going, I think it was 2-4 in 1-score games that year. You can't afford that this year. Otherwise, you don't reach the goals you've set out for this season. So while it's fair to say, Beau's still new to starting, there's going to be some issues. If you, as a team, are serious about the goals that you want to reach this year, then that development has to come a lot faster than it did with Brady Cook going from 2022 into 2023.
In that 2022 season with Brady Cook, too, he was dealing with a shoulder injury that many didn't even know about. It wasn't a public designation either. So just kind of all around, it is a tough kind of comparison in the end of expectations for what these teams are trying to accomplish. But from a quarterback standpoint, these 2 guys are actually in their first years as full starters in the SEC. So I understand it from that point. Getting into, this Auburn game now, and Missouri going back to Auburn for the first time since 2022, ironically, just referencing the 2022 season. I think the Tigers want to forget that performance just on, how that one ended in overtime with Nate Pete extending the football and fumbling it into the end zone, the back of the end zone. Mizzou won this game last year, of course. It was the Brady Cook game. Going to the hospital, coming back and leading the Tigers over the Tigers in the homecoming victory. Pretty early contest there. This one's going to be on the late stretch, though, for Missouri. It's going to be at 6:45 p.m. Saturday on SEC Network at Jordan-Hare Stadium. In Auburn, Alabama on Tiger Radio Network as well. Going to this one, though, Kyle, you talk about wanting to see those better, more offensive consistency, better throws, more accuracy, not seeing Bo Prabula overthrowing receivers or, having the right reads. Going into this one, though, I mean, what are some of the keys to the game on the offensive side of the ball?
Last week, we talked a lot about how the strengths and weaknesses kind of lined up for Mizzou and Alabama, and that game did not play out offensively the way I thought it would for either team. This week, it's kind of much more good on good. Auburn's strength on its defense is run defense, so it's going to be a battle of, and kind of same on offense for both sides. It's going to be a battle of kind of who can run the ball effectively against a very good run defense, and then who's able to better take advantage of the opportunities that come in the air, because both of these secondaries have struggled at times. So, I mean, when you're looking at this week, it's kind of, last week was very much strength against weakness on both sides of the ball for both teams. And this week is very much strength on strength. And both teams are very good at running the ball and stopping the run, which has been such a key for Mizzou this year.
Looking at this Auburn defense as well, and some of these guys will be matching up against. Debo Atkins is someone you pointed out, Xavier, transfer from LSU. I remember covering him when I was on the LSU recruiting beat a long time ago. He's from the Houston area, finished out his high school career there. Kyron Crawford as well, who's at the Buck, was one of those more like, stand-up edge rushers and, the run on the outside. What about some of these defensive guys that kind of jumped out to you in this Auburn team that probably was a little bit like besting expectations maybe at the beginning of the season, but really fell into a 3-3 stretch now and trying to figure things out to keep Hugh Freeze in that position?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a strong group, especially those edge rushers in Crawford and Atkins, like you mentioned, and Keldrick Falk is, the other edge rusher with Crawford. They've piled up a lot of sacks as a group. Crawford's got 4, Atkins has 3, and then you got 3 guys with 2, another handful with 1 or 1.5. Like they're able to get after the passer, and they're able to stop the run very effectively. So that front 7 is really a point of focus this week, or needs to be for the Tigers or for Mizzou. I won't use Tigers as much this week, which is going to frustrate me while I'm writing. But it's one of those things where going in that this front 7 is going to cause issues. So you have to be able to kind of take advantage of opportunities where they arise, which is probably in the secondary.
For this Auburn offense too, there's some familiarity there, of course, playing this team last year, but also familiarity at quarterback. Mizzou played that early November contest against Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold, who's now the quarterback at Auburn. Of course, you mentioned it, in your little preview, at the beginning of the week on just, what to know, early things to know about Auburn, and just how to watch this game. You brought up, Tristan Newsom forced that fumble, of course, returned by Zion Young for a touchdown there in the fourth quarter. Very emphatic, exclamation point on that win for the Tigers. What's different maybe about Jackson Arnold this season, just by the numbers? I know there was still like a quarterback battle. There was a play calling battle even going into the season for Auburn. I mean, what's a little bit different right now about this Auburn defense or Auburn offense compared to last year? You're muted.
My apologies. It's a different system for Arnold than what Oklahoma was doing with him last year. That got asked to drink with specifically during the press conference, and there weren't a lot of specifics about what he's doing this year versus last year, because it's a lot of differences. But he's definitely a more effective runner than he is a passer at this point with Auburn's offense. He's been a very effective runner. I think he's second on the team in total yards. He's got 6 rushing touchdowns, which leads Auburn. Gosh, that's going to get me over and over again. But the passing game has been a bit of a struggle at times, and especially if Mizzou is able to land some pressure, I think they can force Arnold kind of to use his legs more than Auburn maybe wants him to specifically, although they do a lot of kind of designed stuff with him.
looking at some of those weapons that he has too. Damari Alston won't be playing in this game. He's no longer with the Auburn program. He's one of the running backs. Wasn't really playing as much as Jeremiah Cobb is right now for the Auburn Tigers. 453 yards, 4 touchdowns this season. With the majority of that coming against Ball State and South Alabama, as you noted. Another one, the wide receivers, and I think a lot of people that probably followed recruiting or just followed, some of these big signings that Auburn had over the last couple of years. Cam Coleman, SEC All-Freshman team last year, 37 catches, 598 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Who really stands out to you just that, is going to be probably targeted the most in this game?
I mean, Coleman is certainly the standout, right? Because of what he was able to do last year in an offense that struggled otherwise. He's been playing pretty well this year, again, in an offense that at points has struggled to throw the ball effectively. The other one's Eric Singleton Jr., right? He was one of the bigger names in the portal, and Drinkwitz kind of pointed him out specifically in the slot. I think he said on Tiger Talk last night, like we never got close to talking to him, or we're never able to get involved. Not that they weren't trying, but that he was getting so many offers, was getting pulled so many different directions that that Mizzou just wasn't able to get a foot in there. They came away with Kevin Coleman. I don't think they're worried about it. But yeah, those two are the prime targets in the passing game, certainly. Jeremiah Cobb is top 10 in the SEC in rushing, but as noted in my What to Know, How to Watch, a strong majority of the total yards came against 2 of the cupcakes on the schedule. Otherwise, I think he's close to like 50 yards a game against SEC opponents, because a lot of that rushing game has been led by Arnold. So it's kind of the dual threat between the two of them on the ground that has made that part of the offense successful. But Cobb is a talented back, and he's going to cause issues. The Mizzou run defense had been so good through those 5 games, struggled at times against Alabama, but didn't actually give up a ton of yards. It just kind of felt like Alabama was the one forcing the issue on the ground more, which was not something we had seen from Mizzou to that point in the season. If Auburn is able to kind of be the one forcing the issue on the ground, that's going to be a problem again.
Getting some more notes just about this Auburn contest, especially with it not realistically being the first road contest. The Tigers actually mocked one earlier in the year before the actual regular season started. But a quick, read from our sponsors over at Roback. I said before we got on here, I'm not wearing any Roback today, but I put it on. We're both wearing the Hezzy hoodies today. Kyle, 2 different colors if you're watching with us on the YouTube. There's only one way to describe Roback: best fit, best feel. For those who aren't familiar with Roback, they're completely changing the game. They're incredibly comfortable, active wear. Roback has released so many items with its new licensed game day collection, and it's our favorite. With novel polo designs and clean hoodie and Q-zip designs for some of your favorite schools, it's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else on the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of active wear. Roback's everyday shorts or their Delta Performance pants are the perfect pairing as well. They're both super comfortable, have an elastic waistband, and great fabric that is made to have the appearance of a nice short look, but the comfort for a day on the move. Roback has been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars past and present, and are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across the country. And if you're watching with us on YouTube, I usually put it on the screen as well. There's new stuff in the store for the Missouri licensed apparel right now. There's a hoodie, there's a crew neck. I wasn't expecting this when I pulled it up today. I hadn't seen it, so definitely share that on their social media accounts, on the X account for MizzouToday for those who haven't seen it yet. Use the code MIZ20 on Roback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with code MIZ20. Kyle, let's get into this actually not being the first Mizzou road game. I actually went to this conversation that Drinkwitz had when he's kind of talking about when they went to Lindenwood in August and did like a little mock road event. They got everyone on the bus. They had a little scrimmage there at that. It wasn't open to the public, but conversations and interviews were afterward where he talked, I think like 12 to 15 minutes, good amount of time just on what they were doing. He took helmets away from players. He tried to create adversity. He tried to put these guys in a spot where someone had to step up and respond. in a certain capacity. And I think, he didn't really see the best performances on the offensive line. Is probably where we started to hear a little bit more of Caden Green moving out to left tackle for this season. What did he kind of talk about this week, going back to that Lindenwood game? Because this is the true first road test of the season. But, when you play 6 road games to open the year with a bye week smashed in there as well, this is the first time, this is really late in the year. It's October 15th when we're recording this, that you're actually going to go out and leave the state of Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that Mizzou struggled on the road last year, right? I mean, that's the start of the game against Texas A&M, spiraled out of control. As I've said before, I kind of count Alabama as a different thing because of the injuries, but they started slow at Mississippi State. They started slow at South Carolina. It was an issue. So going into fall camp, Drinkwitz knew that it was something that needed to be addressed. For that third scrimmage of fall camp, they took a trip over to Lindenwood in St. Charles, spent the night at a hotel, did the whole morning routine, did the bus, all that stuff that you said. That's all great. It's an interesting idea. I like the concept. It was asked yesterday, the first question of the press conference was something about starting slow on the road and trying to address that differently going in this week. And Drinkwitz just said, like, man, this isn't our first road game. We did our first road game in August. That's all well and good. It's going to be a little different going to Lindenwood and scrimmaging during the day against yourself versus going to Jordan Hare Stadium at night. I like the idea. I think it's a good concept. And from what players talked about when asked about it, I think it was Chris McClellan and Brett Norfleet both said, like, yeah, they think it'll help a lot, especially with the younger guys who haven't really experienced a road trip, or the transfers who came in and it might be a different procedure that Mizzou uses for road trips than other schools do. So that's great. I don't love that it's being comparatively said as like, yeah, we've already experienced a road game, because you experienced a scrimmage at a different stadium, but it was still, I just don't love that comparison. I do like the idea a lot. I think it was a good idea, and I do think it could help.
And Drinkwitz gave a lot of credit, not credit, but he did point out multiple times the past couple of weeks about playing in a road environment. He said, Jordan Hare is different. Even when Auburn is probably not the best team, you even go back to 2022 under Brian Harsin. That was not a good Auburn team. It was still a great environment. I mean, that was one of my favorite road games that I went to when I was covering the team in college. And I still think Auburn is one of the best cities in the SEC just for college football. And when you look at this game too, Kyle, for the impact that it makes, I think some people have said it before. Must win gets thrown around a lot, but when you have aspirations of making the college football playoff, and this kind of looked like one of those games, maybe it could slip away just depending on how good this Auburn team is. At one point, coming in this game a little bit favored, kind of swinging more back in Missouri's favor now. How big is this game kind of for Missouri moving forward? You see an Oklahoma team that lost to UT, still trying to get its feet back under it, getting its quarterback into rhythm, but. What about this game really means the most just for Missouri's postseason aspirations?
I mean, if you're looking at it as Mizzou still has a very realistic chance to make the playoff, but that means they have to go 5-1 in the back half, right? At worst. And that's with 4 road games. So you can drop 1, and you've got Oklahoma on the road. You've got Vanderbilt on the road, which has turned into a tough place to play. You've got Auburn on the road, which has been a tough place to play, even when they're not an incredible team. You've got Texas A&M coming to town. You get to lose one of those, and then Arkansas, right, on the road as well. So, yeah, you have to win 5 of them. And, you can say what you want about calling any of the 6 specifically a must-win, but there are tougher games coming up than this week. So I think kind of the key to that as well is the response from Alabama. That's kind of the issue here with dropping that game instead of playing a B quality game and coming away with a win. You've just taken away one of your opportunities to not show up, basically. That's never what you want, obviously, but that is kind of what Texas A&M looked like last year in the first road game. It seemed like the Tigers just didn't show up. Now you can't do that. I mean, you really, really can't do that. So this is your first opportunity on the road. It's your first opportunity to respond from a loss and show that a loss to Alabama is not going to spiral into 2 losses. And it's, as I've said, you only get 1 more loss at most, and you've got better quality teams on the schedule coming up, including other road games in tough environments.
You got some good quarterbacks you're facing, down the pipeline too. Like you're talking about Diego Pavia, John Matier, if he gets things figured out at Oklahoma. No semantics going on at Texas A&M this year, probably with that matchup either. So I mean, there's a lot of good talent coming down the stretch. Even if some of these teams have losses or have shown weaknesses before, you're going to face the best of the best for a reason, because you're in the SEC. This game is at 6:45 p.m. Saturday. Kyle will be at this game. He'll be covering it for Mizzou Today, so you can find all of his work on Mizzou Today. So Missouri on 3 Rivals. You can also find everything on Facebook, X, Instagram, whatever your fancy is. It'll be posted there as well. But Kyle, any other quick takeaways? Any other thoughts that we missed just heading into this first road matchup for Missouri?
Yeah, I'm gonna circle back to what I just said for a second, because I don't want that to come across as me thinking this is going to be an easy game or Auburn isn't still a very tough team. There's just top 10 teams coming up, and Auburn's not a top 10 team. But every road game specifically is tough. Every SEC game is going to be tough. This should be another tough matchup for Mizzou. I'm very excited to get to go on the road. I've never been to Auburn. The only road SEC games I've been to were last year at Texas A&M and Alabama. So I'm excited to kind of crisscross the conference a little more this season, and, first opportunity this week. So looking forward to it.
Well, that's going to be Kyle at the game at Kyle_McAreavy on Twitter. He'll be there. He'll have all the coverage for you, staying up into the late Alabama night, probably until 1 a.m. It's a late kick. So you can find all his work on Mizzou Today, and we will be back next week for another preview for the Vanderbilt game. Is that right? Yeah, Vanderbilt week 9. That's crazy. We're already getting through week 8 right now. Again, 6:45 p.m. kick on the SEC Network, also on Tiger Radio Network, on the road at Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, Alabama. We will see you guys next week.